an origin reading for the core. Okay, so I have two crystals, and then I have a statue here. So I have my citrine, and this was the crystal that I used to surround us in protective space. When I received your code name, and actually come to think of it, that is pretty appropriate because it has to do with your solar plexus, citrine does. It also has a lot to do with personal power and knowing yourself, knowing who you are, kind of thing. And your solar plexus, obviously, that's more at your center, at your core. That's why I was saying that it is kind of appropriate. And then I have here my Jasper pyramid. So there are a lot of reds and oranges in here, a lot of masculine energy with already a masculine pyramid. And then here I have my dragon guardian. He's also a lion, but I always thought he was a dragon before, and he makes me think of my dragon. Okay, so all right, so the thing that was coming in with the code name, I got the code name really quickly, so it was pretty short, but starting with the code name, the very first thing actually that I picked up on before I got the code name was there was some kind of Pleiadian energy with you. So I'm gonna have to check in and see what this is, if this is like a past lifetime. I don't really see it as being an origin, or I might be picking up on you even not really seeing that as an origin. That doesn't feel quite like the origin. But this could be a past lifetime that you have had, or this could be like a guide around you that I'm picking up on as well. There could be like a Pleiadian guide around you, or it could be an origin and I'm just sensing something along with that, some kind of feeling along with that. But then when I got the code name, which like I said came in really quickly, it just felt like kind of this snippet of the idea of universal consciousness and the idea of everyone being God, everyone being from God. And so at the core of yourself, you are God. So in other words, at the core of yourself, you are good. At the core of yourself, you are divine. And there's really nothing that you can do about that. There's nothing that could ever take that away or dampen that or change that or alter that in any kind of way. That's just kind of stuck there. No matter what you do about it, you can attempt to remove it all you want. And there's no way of changing that essential core of who you are and really of who everyone is. At their center, at their core, their reality self, their higher self, whatever you want to call it, is good, profoundly so. And no matter what lower experiences that we have, your guys are just reminding you that you really cannot change that about yourself. That would just be, it would be impossible to do. It would also be impossible to create something that is evil or bad or negative in any way if you are in alignment with who you actually are, with your real self. The only way to create something, you could really say illusional, is all negativity is obviously an illusion, but the only way to create this type of illusional experience, which everybody does, which everybody steps into, create that to show themselves when they are out of alignment with who they are. So you can step out of alignment with who you are, but then you have to acknowledge that you're out of alignment with who you are, versus say, I must be a bad person. When really, again, the problem in that kind of scenario wouldn't be that you're a bad person. It would be that you are not being what you really are or who you really are. And then there's also the whole idea of right and wrong, which right away they are bringing up. In a sense, you can do something bad. In a sense, again, you can do something that is out of alignment with your true self, or that is in alignment with who you really are. In that sense, they're saying, in that sense, they guess you could say that you can do something bad, or you can do something wrong. And obviously some people do things that are really negative or really harmful. And they hurt others and whatnot. Sometimes they do it even when their intentions are good. And it's not something that they are necessarily meaning to do. They're just not understanding something. They're not seeing something clearly. And they're reacting to something out of that misunderstanding. But they actually have a pure intention. They mean well. Like when your parent says, go to college, and that's really not your path, type of thing. And they're insisting that you do this. They are meaning well, but they're not actually allowing you to be who you are, to be yourself. Okay, so the reason that they are using that example is exactly for that reason. The way that someone can damage you or do something bad to another person is to almost help them experience something illusional. Help them experience something that isn't in alignment with them and who they are, so to speak. So take them out of alignment with themselves, or attempt to. And that's when somebody does something that is in a sense harmful or bad, or what we perceive as negative. Whether it's they're trying to kill the person and it's that extreme, whether it's they're lying, whatever it is. But it has to do with the person taking them out of alignment with who they are. And the only way that they can do that is to step out of alignment with who they are themselves first, in the first place. And then the other person has to agree with that. They have to step out of alignment too. And you can, of course, observe something negative and admit that it's negative and stay pure yourself and stay in alignment with who you are yourself. We obviously have the ability to do that. So they're saying that's just to kind of give you some perspective, and that's almost like a reminder of certain things, certain facts. They're saying even with somebody like Hitler, yes, he did something very, very negative, wrong, bad, evil, all of those things. But in this same sense. So he did all of those wrong things in a sense. You definitely couldn't call it good. He still had like an intention to gain more. He saw it in some way as benefiting himself. So he was power hungry. He was getting something from it. He still saw it in some way as an attempt to be positive, as weird as that sounds. An attempt to gain something positive for himself by doing all of these wicked things to others. So even with him, someone that extreme, there's always going to be this sense of who you are, and attempting to reach it in some way. But obviously you can be totally out of alignment with that, and you can be grasping for it in a way that does not serve you at all and brings humanity, the kind of shitstorm that he did. And that's a pretty light way of saying what he did, I realize. But you get the point. He was bringing people out of alignment with him, with themselves, and almost giving them this agenda. They had to follow this certain thing. They had to live this certain way. So with some people, he was almost bringing this sort of side out of them. But again, like taking them off kilter and out of who they really are, but almost bringing up this other side that you could see, this thought form in them that would want to do those things and harm others. And then with other people, they felt like they had no choice. So they felt like they were a victim to serving this person. They're saying this human. They weren't saying person. I said person. They were saying human, and then they're repeating it, and they're almost doing it in quotes. So they don't seem to really think that Hitler was human. So they're saying that he was something else, and he had like a very kind of evil agenda. But still, he was attempting to gain something. So there's still this feeling like he wants to go to himself. He wants to be who he is, but he doesn't know how at all. But they're saying that no matter what you do, you're always going to attempt to find something positive. Even if you're on the other end of the spectrum, where this other thing that they mentioned as well, where it's like then you had these other people who were serving him because they felt like they had no choice, they had to obey, or this was going to happen to them. So it's still that sense of they are less in harm's way. So in that sense, they're still moving forward. They are moving away from something that would be potentially more harmful than what following this person is going to do to them. So in that sense as well, they're still reaching for themselves. They're still attempting to create something as positive as possible, and they don't know how to do it. They feel forced to almost take the lesser of two evils in that sense. But they're saying that no matter what you do, you are always reaching for something good ultimately. No matter what you do. And they're saying that no matter who you are always good. And no matter what you do, you are always good. And you always have the ability to do the right thing. And you always have the ability to be clear. And you always have the ability to be in alignment with yourself. Okay, so there is a feeling like they're being a little vague. I don't feel like I need to get into it that much. But what it feels like is, okay, so yes, there was this feeling. I don't feel like they're just going to say just this whole thing of no, there is no wrong and right and whatever. They're explaining all of it and how it all is ultimately. But at the same time, they're saying, yes, you did step into some of that to a degree. And you need to observe that. But it's like you need to realize why. You almost need to study it. But without associating yourself with it, without associating who you really are with it and thinking that you are a bad person. Because it's like then you're still out of alignment with who you are. It's like you're still not acknowledging who you really are. And the only way to stay connected to that and be free of this other side, these other thought forms that aren't really you, is to observe them and remove them by understanding them. And to step into who you are by acknowledging who you are. But they're saying on the other hand, on the flip side of that, we also have programmings of how to be good and almost what's deserving of that sort of title, good. And what does it mean to be good? Well, being good in that sense, or being positive, or right, it just means, again, that you are in alignment with who you really are. It doesn't mean that you have to be a certain way. It doesn't mean that you have to come across as good to others. It doesn't mean that you have to have this programmed way that society thinks of being good. And how that is to our society, being polite and being nice, which can actually be very negative. You know, you can be nice to someone who's really harming you, for instance, and not set a boundary with them out of politeness, and you're really being self-sacrificing. You're not being self-serving in the sense of serving who you are and being in alignment with yourself. You're being self-sacrificing, you're damaging yourself, and so you're damaging others as well. So this is like this whole philosophical thing that they want you to value who you really are. And just who you are as a whole. And realize who you are. Realize your potential to serve others, your potential to serve yourself, your potential to be better in a sense, but all that means is more in alignment with who you are. And it just means expanding that, expanding upon who you are, expanding upon your awareness of yourself, and helping others out of that. And being who you are, out of that, out of a true, authentic vibration, versus this programmed sense of this is how I'm supposed to be. This is what good really means. And this is who I'm going to be because this is who I should be. So they're saying that there's a lot of ways to observe this. And to almost think of it in a complete way. You have to look at it from different angles, observe it and study it and understand who you are and yourself and what you stepped into at different points, or really what you stepped out of. But the main thing to take, again, is that who you are is really good. And it doesn't reflect on you, even when you do something. Not the core of you, not your real self. It doesn't change who you are. It doesn't make you different. So it's like you can choose to see yourself that way. So I definitely have this this Pleiadian energy around, and it feels female. But I have this whole group kind of standing around. It feels like several guides standing around you. I feel like you're a very old soul. I feel like you're very wise. I feel like you tend to be pretty grounded, even if it doesn't always seem that way to you. But I feel like you do tend to be pretty grounded and pretty stable. There's a feeling coming in, almost like you don't need to worry about your mind. You don't ever need to worry that you are like unstable as a person, like mentally or emotionally. It's, I don't know, there's a feeling almost like that coming in, like you may even have wondered that at times, or something to do with that. Even with emotions, unstable emotionally, like someone can be bipolar or things like that. That's usually like a physical thing. Something physical is off. But it can also be a physical thing that is reflected by what is inside of the person, and it's kind of manifesting outwardly. And then it becomes something that is like a physical kind of disimbalance. But I don't feel like you have anything like that. That feels kind of like strange for me to say, or kind of random or something, but that's coming through. You really don't need to worry about your mind being sound. I feel like you have a very sound mind. I feel like you're very capable. that you're strong emotionally, that you are centered, that you tend to know what you are talking about. If you believe something, you have evidence. You're not just believing certain things off the wall without understanding that there's some reason for it, that you're thinking that way, even if you're wrong, whether something is true or not. That's not the point. The point is that that it makes sense for you to think that. In other words, so in other words, you put pieces together, you collect evidence, and you actually think things through and kind of turn them over in your mind, and you come to conclusions. We can never see the whole picture, obviously, while we're on Earth, even if we think that we can. So they're saying that whether you're right or wrong about something, that's not even the point. You have a sound mind. You have sound judgment. You try to think things through and be reasonable. I also feel like you're very nurturing. And I get the sense that you can give sound advice to others. It even feels almost like, I don't know if this is like kids that you have and it's coming in that way almost, but there's almost this kind of motherly kind of feeling like that, and that you're able to give advice almost to like a younger person. So again, this could be your own kids, but this just feels like you, an ability that you have, and also the ability to encourage others and almost like lighten up the mood and things like that. And it just feels like it's because you are strong emotionally, you are a centered, grounded person, and so you're able to bring that to others. You're able to help them to feel more grounded, more secure, and more sure of themselves, and more empowered, and you like to place that on others. There's also a feeling that just you're a lot older than most people your age, in the sense of inward growth, and even what you look into and what you research and the concepts that you consider, the practices that you've observed at different times. And you're very open. Your guides are saying that this is something that they really like, and that they really encourage. I've got a male energy coming in with a guide now. This guide feels like he's Pleiadian as well, though. I was wondering if there was a male kind of Pleiadian energy. And he has this kind of scholarly kind of feeling with him, and very grounded at the same time, very down to earth. He feels practical, he feels well organized also, but at the same time he has this kind of mysterious, kind of what I call like a dark energy, but in that sense I mean like a feminine energy, a positive energy, kind of the way that night feels as opposed to day. It feels very mysterious, it feels more inward. He has that kind of sense about him. But I definitely call that a dark guide. That's how I refer to it. But they want me to point that out as well, because I feel like even in that sense, darkness is neutral. It can be positive, it can be negative, light as well. I've come across beings who were more on a light current. They were showing all this light and everything, but they ended up being really negative. Versus I've come across beings that show a lot of black, and they're a very positive being. So it's more like a current of night versus a current of day. Whereas this female, she's coming in with more like white light. And she feels kind of more like open, expansive. So there's more of this kind of outward, more like masculine energy that comes from her. A little bit more feminine energy coming from him, where he's looking into things. He's seeking. And I feel like both aspects are there with you as well. I feel like your guides kind of reflect you a little bit. But these are both Pleiadian guides. I've got another guide around too. I'm kind of coming up on the time frame a little bit. I know I can't go too much longer, but I have another guide here as well. And coming in with an A, so I was confused for a second. I was thinking maybe Andromeda for a second, but it really does not feel like that at all. This feels more like Arcturus from this guide. I feel like that's definitely a place where you have had some lifetimes for sure. So you have a lot of teacher qualities with you and some healing abilities with you that you bring, as well as empathy. And you do have somewhat of an ability to read others. I feel like you haven't fully developed that, where you would necessarily just give a reading or something like that, but I feel like it's there. So these guides are definitely very present with you. These feel more like primary guides. These two, they feel like they could be your primary guides, because usually the primary guides, it comes in as a female and a male almost always, unless it's one being who's androgynous, or sometimes it's two beings that are androgynous. But that's pretty rare. It's usually a female and a male. And then you have other guides that kind of help you in more specific areas, which it feels more like this Arcturian guide does. And this feels like it could be more along, I don't know if that's the origin, Arcturus, but I definitely feel like you have had lives there. Sometimes this happens, and it's not, I wouldn't be able to get the origin. I would definitely admit that if that were the case. But this happens sometimes with this type of reading, where if the guides want to talk about certain things, especially certain things that they feel like are blocking the person, that's almost always what it is. It always has to do with some kind of block. And they want to give the person a new perspective on that. They want to talk to them about those things first. Then they don't always necessarily come through with the origin. But I feel like these are some places for sure where you've had lives. There's also Sirius coming in as somewhere where you've had lives. But again, I don't know if either of these three places is necessarily your origin, but I feel like you've had lives there. As far as this reptilian question, that they're reminding me of that, and they're saying that that's definitely not your origin. Obviously, there are multiple, reptoid races, and some are positive, some are more benevolent. But I don't really feel like you are any of those. So they did want to clarify that. Okay, but I am up to our time limit. I went a little bit over. I wanted to give them a chance to kind of talk because I had some, more guides coming up there at the end. Okay, but that is the end of this reading. So thank you very much, the core, for allowing me to do this reading for you and connect with your guides. I truly hope that this message benefits you and serves you. Thank you very much. Namaste.